Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of the program, The Platform. On this program, we examine the national issues of the Bahamas. And on our program today, we are going to be talking about something that is very topical in the Bahamas, and it has been so for the last several weeks. You would have heard in the Parliament of the Bahamas that ministers of the government, they have accused the organization Save the Bays of seeking to destabilize the government of the Bahamas over the so-called Peter Nygard-Louis Bacon affair. Well, on our program today, we are speaking with one of the directors of Save the Bays, Attorney Fred Smith, QC, who has been quite active in the last several months on a number of issues. He has been the lead lawyer for Save the Bays with certain issues before the Supreme Court of the Bahamas. Fred Smith, it's good to have you here again.
Wendell, thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice
to see you. You came on our radio program and you answered some of the queries, some of the questions that our public had for you. What is Save the Bays?
Well, Wendell, you have me at a great disadvantage here.
Why is that?
You have me sitting from this angle, and it's not a very good angle for my nose, because, you know, I played rugby for decades, and it's been broken 3 times.
Okay.
And so the angle that you're shooting me at is showing a very crooked nose, but...
Oh, you want to change trade sides?
Only teasing. So Save the Bays is an environmental organization that is primarily concerned with protecting the rule of law, encouraging crown land for Bahamians, preventing oil pollution, and promoting a Freedom of Information Act. And we are, to that extent, a very political organization, not in the pejorative sense that I think the members of Parliament have been accusing us of. We're very political in that we're seeking to effect change in the body politic. We are not a partisan organization. We are not supportive of the FNM or the PLP. And our directors and many of our members come from both sides of, or 3 sides of the political spectrum. And so although we espouse political objectives, we are not a partisan organization. And I say that, I emphasize that, because of late we have been accused of being somehow perhaps a political party almost, seeking to destabilize the government. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Should Save the Bays then be considered an organization, say, like the Bahamas National Trust or BRIEF?
Not like the Bahamas National Trust. The National Trust is partially a government organization.
Okay.
And it has been created by statute, and it's a very, in the world, a very unique organization. BRIEF, Re-Earth, the Grand Bahama Human Rights Association, any number of these NGOs, that's what we are. We are an NGO promoting the rule of law.
Should you show then, say, audited financial statements?
No.
Why not?
Those are our private affairs. Freedom of information is a matter directed at governments. Private financial correspondence, private financial statements, etc., are protected by the right to privacy, by constitutional rights, by banking secrecy laws, and everyone is entitled, if you're not a government entity, to respect of your privacy. You see, in the Bahamas, as in New Zealand, in Australia, Canada, England, Ireland, Scotland, we are, our jurisdiction is a common law jurisdiction born on the basis of a presumption of innocence. So everybody is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. So the power to demand information of a private citizen or a private corporation or the power to obtain information or the power to breach privacy is not something that is lawful.
So you don't have to show, for instance, the source or sources of your income.
I believe that Parliament is currently considering an act to regulate NGOs, and to the extent, I'm looking at that right now, and to the extent that that may breach not just Save the Bays, but Grand Bahama Human Rights Association, any number of organizations, Responsible Development for Abaco, Abaco Cares, any NGO whereby the government seeks to control it in any way, has rights under the Constitution.
Okay.
And government control of any non-governmental organization, either through licensing, either through financial statements, either through getting permission from the government to do anything, is always a very dangerous mechanism. It causes organizations to self-edit. It prevents them from speaking freely. It gives improper power to government authorities to try and control freedom of expression.
The Prime Minister of the Bahamas has said in the Parliament of the Bahamas that one of your main sponsors, Louis Bacon, has spent millions of dollars, he mentioned the figure $20 million, to discredit him and his government. And in addition to that, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Fitzgerald, they have accused that organization of seeking to destabilize the government of the Bahamas with the many ads that ran in the newspapers, very expensive ads. In addition to that, they have revealed in the House of Assembly the amount of money that some people are being paid to do the work of Save the Bays and Louis Bacon. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't know where the Prime Minister is getting any of his information. I don't know if that is accurate. Certainly, if Fred Mitchell, Jerome Fitzgerald, or the Prime Minister have information that they properly obtained and was not in breach of the Data Protection Act, then they may choose to do what they wish to do with it lawfully. It certainly is not appropriate for them to be attacking people who are not able to defend themselves in Parliament under the guise of parliamentary privilege. It certainly is inappropriate of them to be using it. I believe one of the emails was read calling my secretary, my assistant, one of the messengers in my office, associate attorneys, third-party vendors we use to do some of the work for Save the Bays. That's pure political, psychological terrorism.
Yes.
No, let me
Yes.
finish, please. Because that doesn't, you see, the backdrop to all of this was a Supreme Court case that Mr. Bacon, myself, Reverend Moss, Romy Ferreira, Joe Darville, mounted to protect our private law rights against Peter Nygard and Code Smith. I don't understand how that case, in which we made no allegations against the Prime Minister or Fitzgerald or Mitchell or any other government member, should suddenly have transmogrified into a wholesale government attack against Save the Bays.
Yes, but it became that because you had the national chairman of the FNM, the chairman of a political party,
Yes.
and a senator
Yes.
who, according to an affidavit, was present when Save the Bays paid two young men money to produce a particular affidavit. Okay. So it became a political issue. And so in the Parliament of the Bahamas, they sought to show that Save the Bays is indeed a political organization, as you admitted. Your objectives, you say, are political. And those MPs sought to show that you were funded by Louis Bacon for political reasons.
What does any of that have to do with Peter Nygard and Code Smith having assaulted, battered, clothed people in Ku Klux Klan outfits to parade up and down Bay Street, have 5 rallies, hate rallies against us, in which they denounced me, Louis Bacon, Reverend C.B. Moss, and others as not being Bahamian, as being foreigners, as being Haitians, as being Haitian infidels.
Only you as a Haitian
No,
infidel.
they want to know about Diane Phillips and Joe Darville, whether they were Bahamian or not. There was a widespread hate campaign which Mr. Nygaard promoted against us.
How do you know it was Nygaard?
Because we have information about this. And so because this matter is before the Supreme Court, I'm not going to go into the details of it. Suffice it to say, I keep emphasizing, I don't understand how the FNM and the PLP didn't simply come together to denounce Mr. Nygaard in his abusive and disrespectful language and treatment of our Prime Minister. I don't care if you're PLP or FNM.
Yeah, but that is another issue. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. That's another issue. We are talking about Save the Bays, the legitimacy of Save the Bays.
Well, that's why I don't understand why we're talking about the legitimacy of Save the Bays.
No, we're talking about Save the Bays. I started out by talking about Save the Bays.
Why are we talking about the legitimacy of Save the Bays?
Because the government has accused, or the
why has the government accused us of this? Did we accuse the government of anything?
Ministers of the government have accused Save the Bays of destabilizing the government. You admitted that you have political objectives. You have
trying to pass the Freedom of Information Act.
You've gone to the Supreme Court for a number of injunctions.
Yes.
You have moved in the Supreme Court for judicial reviews. You've sued the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Attorney General, the Minister of Works, and the Deputy Prime Minister over a number of issues.
Yes.
And so that is why they are suggesting that you are seeking to destabilize the government.
No, we are seeking to protect rights which Save the Bays and its membership has, which are being abused. And the legitimacy of that initiative by our organization is to be measured by the reaction of the Supreme Court. Thank God our rights don't depend on politicians upholding them or not. Because depending on whatever side you are on the political spectrum, they abuse each other and they abuse people. I've sued the FNM as many times as I've sued the PLP.
Okay. You know, super PACs exist in the United States of America. Would you liken Save the Bays to a super PAC?
Oh, Save the Bays has very, very transparent and accountable objectives. You go to our website and you see exactly what we're doing. We have no secret agenda. We have no ulterior motives. We're not seeking to destabilize any government. Of course, we sue those who have, like the Prime Minister or the Deputy Prime Minister or various regulatory authorities, whoever has obligations under various laws to do or not to do something, we are holding them accountable by way of judicial review. Now, this is not something, I mean, the Prime Minister, Sir Lyndon Pindling, Kendall Isaacs, Cecil Wallace Whitfield, for the last 50 years in the Bahamas, many, many people have been suing through judicial review to protect their public law rights or to enforce their public law rights. I don't understand why Save the Bays should suddenly be accused of doing something which is treasonous or seditious, as Fred Mitchell or Jerome Fitzgerald have been suggesting, throwing those words around, accusing us of suborning democracy. All of these are very highfalutin words, which most people, once you start to say them about somebody, start to think, oh, well, these people are up, where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, Save the Bays is very transparent.
But you know,
you go to our website and you see what we do.
But you yourself, you've been involved in any number of issues.
40 years.
Yes, against this particular government.
No. Be correct now. Against every government. From the time, 1977 was the first time I sued. It happened to be a PLP government then, in 1978, sorry. And since then, I have serially represented people on human rights issues and environmental issues against whichever administration is there, PLP or FNM.
Since Louis Bacon is your number one contributor to
No,
save
but you
the base.
say this.
Yeah, but we know that. We know
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we know
Louis
that. We
Bacon
know
is
that.
a director of Save the
Yes,
Base.
he's one of the leaders, eh?
He is one of the founding members of Save the Base.
Yes.
That's very different from
and more capital fund. Is that the name of it?
more charitable foundation. I
Foundation is controlled by Louis Bacon.
think. I don't know that. You see,
but I know that.
I'm not being
but
coy.
see, I know that. Okay.
I'm not being coy. I don't know Louis Bacon's financial affairs. I don't know Louis Bacon's corporate structure.
Yes, but he has admitted, Mr. Bacon has admitted in a letter that I saw that he controls that particular foundation.
That
okay?
might be it. But you should
I
ask his
saw
lawyer,
that.
Robert Adams.
No, but
not me.
I saw that. And he has admitted to funding Save the Base. Okay?
Well, you say that.
No, I saw that.
You say that.
I saw that as a matter of record.
okay. You say that.
No, I saw that.
Which
no,
letter
but
is this?
I saw a
No,
letter.
you see, this is
Let
just
me finish.
No,
I
no,
saw
no,
a letter.
It's not appropriate to do that.
To
if
do
you
what?
have something which you wish to point to, which supports what you are saying, because it is a matter that we are not agreeing on, I can't let it pass by because it is often used as some measure of criticism against us.
No, not you now. I'm saying that he has submitted a letter showing that he is a founder of Save the Base, that he funds,
co-founder of Save the
he funds Save the Base. He says that he controls
Anyway,
the fund.
let's move on.
This is the same man who the Prime Minister says is responsible for criticizing him and spending millions
Louis
of dollars.
Bacon has not criticized the
millions
Prime
of
Minister.
dollars.
No.
Save the Base has.
Save the Bays
Yes.
has sued the Prime Minister on the basis that he is the minister responsible for Crown lands, and in breach of his statutory duties, he has failed to prevent Mr. Nygaard from trespassing on Crown land. That is all that has happened with the Prime Minister.
Louis Bacon is
All
a
right?
neighbor of Peter Nygaard.
Yes, and they have their own litigation. Louis Bacon and Peter Nygaard have their own litigation going, I believe.
The point being made is that Peter Nygaard is a pawn in a game.
What game?
To get at Peter Nygaard,
So
he
he's
has used Save the Base to get at Peter Nygaard, right?
Okay.
And to run interference for him.
Okay.
And to discredit Peter Nygaard for him. Louis Bacon,
Louis Bacon doesn't
your
need-
main source of income,
Louis Bacon doesn't
has
need...
used Save the Base for this purpose, to discredit his neighbor Peter Nygaard, in which he has had a feud running for years. How do you
Louis
respond?
Bacon doesn't need Save the Bays to do what you are suggesting. Save the Bays' track record is exemplary in fighting for environmental rights. We have a number of environmental community partners throughout the Bahamas and internationally. We have worked diligently with other organizations, for instance, to prevent unregulated development and breach of the Planning and Subdivision Act at Blackbeard's Key. We've worked diligently, and you've indeed been part of going to Bimini and seeing firsthand the devastation to the environment and the society and the culture in Bimini with the development there, the Bimini blue illusions that we represent. You've seen the work that we've done with responsible development with Abaco and our work against the BEC power plant there. The work that I've done for decades for Save Guanaqui and any number of other environmental...
You did those things before Save the Bays.
But you see, Save the Bays...
You did some of those things before Save the Bays.
No. Save the Bays didn't appear in a vacuum. Save the Bays consists of directors and members that have a long history of being people of integrity in the community who have done environmental and or human rights work for decades. Educational work, activism work, political work in trying to change the Bahamas for the better. So we didn't just happen to just arrive here, Johnny come lately, to attack Peter Nygaard. You see, in Clifton Bay, you have a microcosm of issues challenging the Bahamas. You have the issue of recreational facilities at the Clifton Heritage Park, where the Coalition to Save Clifton with Reverend C.B. Moss has been promoting the creation of the Marine and Land Park, which is something that's been going on for nearly 17, 18 years now. You have the recreational sites and the ecotourism sites with the diving operations. You have Albany and Adelaide, and you have Lyford Key, some of the most affluent residential neighborhoods in the Bahamas that are trying to coexist with an industrial site where you have BEC and the other oil companies. As you may know, I don't know if you know, but we've received judicial review, permission to launch our judicial review against BEC for the pollution and the toxicity at Clifton Bay. And then you have unregulated development, which is Peter Nygaard at Nygaard Key, who is building on Crown land, occupying Crown land, and developing it without permits. And so you have at Clifton Bay, which is the name of Save the Bays was originally Coalition to Protect Clifton Bay.
What has Mr. Nygaard built on Crown land?
He's built much of his home on the northern side of Nygaard Key.
But
on the northern, you asked me a question.
Fred,
don't mix me up with Fred Mitchell now. I'm very different from Fred Mitchell.
Smith. Mr. Nygaard has not built on Crown land. What he wants permission to build on Crown land.
No.
But anyway, let's take a break here. And when we return, we'll talk some more about that. Fred Smith, Attorney Fred Smith, QC, our guest on the program today. We'll come right back.